would happen if Tanjiro met a different Hashira during episode 1? Would any of the pillars spare the siblings, or would they just mercilessly eliminate them? Also, would this lead to Tanjiro learning other breathing styles? In this video, we'll cover Tanjiro's interaction with each Hashira and explain exactly what would happen, starting with Sanemi, the wind pillar. First of all, it's important to note that Sanemi is way more ruthless than Giyu, as we've seen during episode 22 when he cut Nezuko and baited her with his blood. Another important thing is his tragic past, in which a demon killed his whole family, leaving only him and his brother alive. Due to these factors, it's really unlikely that he would want to hear Tanjiro out. Sanemi is a firm believer in the fact that humans and demons can never coexist. Therefore, even if Nezuko tries to protect Tanjiro, he wouldn't care and would ultimately kill her with no mercy. After this, Tanjiro would be broken, as not only did he lose his entire family that night, but also Nezuko. There isn't really a reason for Sanemi to kill Tanjiro in this situation, so he would probably just leave, calling him a weakling. This time around, although Tanjiro survived, he wouldn't have anyone to train him and teach him about demon slayers. Therefore, filled with rage, he would embark on his own journey to find the people responsible for the death of his family. With no demon slayer training whatsoever, the only abilities Tanjiro could rely on would be his sense of smell and his inhumanly strong headbutt. And I don't think those would get him very far. He may be able to kill a couple of weaker demons by exposing them to sunlight, but in the end, he would eventually get killed by demons without achieving anything. Okay, that scenario was pretty sad, but what about Tanjiro meeting Mitsuri? Would that turn out any better? Well, for starters, Mitsuri is one of the kindest people in the Demon Slayer Corps, which also makes a lot of sense with her being the love Hashira. However, don't underestimate her capabilities, because underneath this shy and innocent character, Mitsuri is a strong and ruthless Demon Slayer who takes her Hashira duties very seriously. With all this in mind, if she was the one who found Tanjiro instead of Giyu, things would take a really interesting turn. The important thing to remember here is that Mitsuri was one of the few people who accepted Nezuko, and even treated her with love and care later on. Therefore, if she saw Nezuko's determination to keep her brother safe, it's unlikely that she would have the heart to kill her. So, after learning Tanjiro's story, she would sympathize with him and offer to teach him about demon slaying. She also offers to teach everyone watching this video how to hit the subscribe button, and she'll be really sad if you don't try it. Anyway, Tanjiro's journey with the love Hashira would be a sight to behold, as instead of water breathing, he would get to learn the love breathing technique. But there is actually a big problem with this. You see, Mitsuri was actually Rengoku's student when she first joined the Corps, and her primary breathing style was flame breathing. However, she quickly realized that this style doesn't suit her well, so she created her own, love breathing. This breath style is very unique, using a whip-like sword instead of a normal one and relying mostly on the user's flexibility and speed, instead of physical strength. You can probably see why this would be a problem for Tanjiro, as flexibility isn't really his main strength. With this style, he would be much weaker compared to the original story and would probably die early on in the series. Even if he manages to survive long enough to awaken sun breathing, he would have a really hard time using it properly. This is because sun breathing requires the user to be physically strong, and since Tanjiro was practicing love breathing this whole time, he wouldn't be strong enough to use it to his full potential. So, regardless of what breathing style he ends up using, I don't see Tanjiro surviving very long in this scenario. These scenarios so far were pretty interesting, but there are still 6 different Hashiras to cover, and some of these interactions you are definitely not expecting. Obanai is the Serpent Hashira and is certainly among the most merciless members of the Demon Slayer Corps. The guy is incredibly strict and unforgiving, even going as far as to tell Tenjin that he should have fought to the death against Yutaro and Daki, criticizing him for getting wounded against the weakest upper moon. Keeping this in mind, if he was the one to find Tanjiro in episode 1, things would have gone very badly. Being the merciless guy he is, Obanai wouldn't even bother to take a second to listen to Tanjiro's pleas. Moreover, he would quickly end Nezuko's life, leaving the boy traumatized and alone with no one to rely on. If by any chance Tanjiro tries to protect his sister by standing in front of her, it would also end tragically, as Obanai would simply not care and slice both of them in a second. Even if Tanjiro does survive the encounter, without someone like Yorokodaki to teach him the ways of demon slaying, he would be completely lost. Same as in the part where he met Sanemi, he would probably try to find a demon who killed his family, and somewhere along the way, he would be easily killed by demons. Up next is Shinobu. the insect hashira, and Tanjiro's interaction with her would be a bit complicated. You see, initially, Shinobu's character in the show is displayed as very cheerful and friendly, showing her as the kind of person who wishes to coexist with the demons, but as we know, that's not really the case. She holds immense hatred in her heart for demons due to the fact that she lost so many loved ones to them. So, does this mean she would kill Nezuko if she met the siblings in episode 1? Well, although we'll never know for sure, I think there is actually a big chance that both Nezuko and Tanjiro will survive this encounter. She would probably attack them at first, just as Giyu did, but after witnessing a demon Nezuko protecting her brother, she would be stunned. This would most likely remind her of her own sister Kanao, who lost her life to demons. She would be curious as to why Nezuko behaves this way and would spare the siblings. From here on, after learning their full story, she would accept Tanjiro as her Sugoku and train him to use. However, once again, there is a big problem with this. Same as with Mitsuri's breathing style, insect breathing is a technique specifically made for Shinobu's lack of physical strength, and it would be very difficult for Tanjiro to use it properly. He would also have to learn about many different types of poison and wield a unique needle-like katana. It's undeniable that insect breathing is one of the worst choices for Tanjiro, and would eventually lead him being much weaker than in the original story. Properly mastering this technique would take years, and even if he does master it, I just don't see him surviving that long. Therefore, he would probably die while engaging some of the stronger demons like Rui or Gyutaro. 4 more scenarios are left, and the next one is everyone's new favorite hashira from the swordsmith village, Moichiro Tokito. Moichiro is one of those characters who just don't care about anything happening around them and are always stuck in their own thoughts. He also shows no emotions whatsoever and acts on pure logical reasoning. Although being logical is not a bad thing by any means, when it comes to meeting Tanjiro and his demon-turned sister in the woods, it's a really bad thing. For some hashira in this video, it's really hard to say what they would actually do in this situation, but when it comes to Moichiro, there is no doubt in my mind that he would instantly kill Nezuko, maybe even Tanjiro if he tries to intervene. Moichiro's view on this is simple. Nezuko equals demon, demon equals evil, and as a hashira, he needs to get rid of evil. Boom, done, see you later. Okay, that encounter was pretty quick and weird, but what would happen if Rengoku was the one to meet the siblings on that day? Would he do his hashira duty, or would he spare them? On the one hand, Rengoku is a well-disciplined hashira and strictly follows his duties. However, on the other hand, he has good intentions and a pure heart, as well as the mindset that the strong should always protect the weak. Based on this, if Tanjiro and Nezuko were able to get his attention and make him listen, I believe Rengoku would understand and empathize with them. Also, it's kinda hard to imagine Rengoku just mercilessly slicing them. It's just not what he would do. Anyway, in this scenario, Rengoku would teach Tanjiro flame breathing. And contrary to the other styles we've covered so far, this one would actually suit him pretty well. Tanjiro is a natural wielder of the sun breathing technique, and the flame one is really similar to it. I'll even go as far as to say that this breathing style would probably suit him even better than water breathing did in the original version. So what would happen to Tanjiro after this? Well, his journey would be pretty similar to the original, with him going on some low-rank missions and eventually facing Rui at Mount Natugumo. At this point in the anime, Tanjiro wasn't strong enough to defeat the demon and was almost killed multiple times. However, since he is stronger now, I believe he would manage to defeat Rui all by himself, without even relying on his sun-breathing abilities. From here on, Tanjiro would keep getting stronger and stronger with each arc, and the story would eventually end similarly to the original, with the core defeating Muzan. Before we cover what would happen if Tanjiro met the strongest hashira in the current generation, let's first quickly go over his meeting with Tenjin. Tenjin is the sound hashira of the Demon Slayer Corps, and during the Entertainment District arc, we learned that he cares about people a lot and always puts himself in harm's way to protect others. However, when it comes to demons, he is a completely different person and shows no mercy whatsoever. So, although we all grew to like Tenjin during the last season, it's really hard to imagine him sparing Nezuko. He is not as optimistic as Rengoku or as sensitive as Gyomei, and therefore he would most likely kill Nezuko quickly without thinking too much about it. And finally, it's time for Tanjiro to meet Gyomei, the strongest hashira in the series and the wielder of the stone-breathing technique. Due to Gyomei's religious upbringing, he has great love in his heart for all living creatures and easily cries even over minor stuff. Although the sibling would definitely be scared when they see him in the woods, I think this interaction would actually go pretty well for them. Gyomei is a really understanding person, and he would be able to sense that Nezuko's intentions are pure and genuine, and would therefore have no reason to attack them. After hearing Tanjiro out, he would take him under his wing and teach him the stone-breathing technique. With Gyomei as his trainer, Tanjiro would primarily focus on getting physically strong, as the stone-breathing greatly relies on that. Similarly to flame-breathing, Tanjiro would be much stronger with this new style than he ever was using water-breathing. The increased increased physical strength would also allow him to use sun breathing more efficiently later on in the story. Another change that could happen in this version is Tanjiro using a different weapon to fight, possibly an axe or mace, since those are the weapons Gyome prefers. Regardless of which weapon he chooses to use, I believe Tanjiro would be able to get insanely strong using this breathing style, and things would probably go the same as in the original. Did you ever wonder if all demon moons together can